On the border of Utah, Arizona, and New Mexico lies the homeland of the Diné. The white settlers renamed the tribe the Navajo and turned the sacred land into a reservation. For almost 50 years, it has been the scene of a strange epidemic of cancers, a mystery which only recently has been explained. This is the Indian hospital in Shiprock, the heart of the reservation. This man is on his way to see his doctor in a ward specialized in patients who suffer from exposure to uranium dust.
Mr. Henderson, I'm just going to listen to your lungs quickly now. Okay. Yeah, going to see. Yes, I would definitely consider this gentleman a survivor. He's 88 years old. He's outlived many of his contemporaries and colleagues from his uranium mining days. Most of those individuals have actually had lung cancer, which has a very high mortality, and they've mostly passed away.
Mr. Anderson was one of those recruited to work in uranium mines that were dug by the hundreds here during the arms race of the Cold War. Navajo lands were found then to contain the country's richest deposits of the radioactive mineral necessary to build nuclear bombs. The mines were run by several private companies who contracted with the federal government and hired the Indian miners to work in the radioactive pits with no protection.
When I
went to work for the mine, they didn't tell me that there would be a health risk later on. I didn't know anything about it. I just needed a job. After we were all laid off, a lot of us started to get sick and die.
In the 1980s, the scandal finally erupts. Congress apologizes to Navajo miners and authorizes reparation payments to survivors of up to $150,000. In order to be indemnified, ex-miners have to prove that they are in fact sick and that they worked in a uranium mine between 1945 and 1970.
They didn't tell us it's dangerous, see? Just a party job with $150,000 is not enough. They ought to buy you insurance, like health insurance, just in case your kid gets affected, your wife affected, and you.
That's because the problem extends beyond just the miners to their families. These were often housed in work camps established next to many mines. Women and children that lived there were exposed to the same radioactive dust and debris. They drank contaminated water. Loretta Benelli grew up in a mining camp with the rest of her family. Her mother, father, and 4 sisters died of cancer. 2 of her own children died before reaching the age of 3, and a 3rd child was affected by birth defects. Her father was a miner for 8 years.
When my dad got his 100,000, it was gone within a month. I think that they owe us an apology for what happened. I think they took our happiness away from our family. They shortened our parents' lives as well as my siblings' lives too. And
how many Navajos have fallen victim to uranium poisoning? No one knows for sure because the federal government has never conducted a comprehensive study. But according to the Indian Health Services, the cancer death rate on the reservation, historically lower than the national average, doubled between 1970 and 1990. Breast and uterine cancers among young women here have also seen a sharp increase. They occur up to 17 times the national average.
We see a great deal of the burden of suffering from the former uranium activities. I think any physician who works here in Shiprock or anywhere within the Navajo area, Indian Health Service, has patients who were affected by uranium mining, patients who've lost family members, parents, brothers, sisters, husbands. It's a very high profile issue here, and it's one that's, I would say, touched most everyone here on the reservation.
At the end of the Cold War, with a moratorium on nuclear weapons testing, the government no longer needs their uranium. One after the other, the mines close, and the companies who ran them simply abandon them, leaving behind an environmental disaster. On the reservation, countless open pits continue to pollute the air and the groundwater. Most mining companies fold or disappear, and the government does little to assist Indian authorities, who are left alone to face the gross pollution of their lands.
The money would be in the millions, if not billions of dollars to clean up all of the uranium mines, remove the tailings from the ground, and make the home sites where people live safe. It's a federal trust responsibility. The land on the Navajo Nation is held in trust by the U.S. federal government, and the Navajo Nation does not have the resources to pay for the cleanup itself.
In the 1990s, tired of federal inaction, the Navajo government decides to undertake its own cleanup effort. Using funds from the operation of coal mines on the reservation, they established the Agency for Abandoned Uranium Mine Reclamation. For 17 years, Melvin Yazzie has been working for the agency, whose task it is to clean up, or at least minimize the contamination that continues to spew forth from old mines. Today, he takes us to see a site that has recently been reclaimed.
The issues with uranium mining, you have the contaminated mine waste, which has radiological hazards, and they're basically been excavated from the earth and left on site.
In the breathtaking beauty of the reservation, the village of Cove lies surrounded by abandoned mines. To find some uranium, you just need to climb one of the steep dirt roads to the nearby hills. A Geiger counter is used to check radiation levels at the mouth of a mine where debris has been covered by 30 centimeters of dirt, the standard procedure. Radiation levels here are acceptable, but a few steps further, it's a different story. Bulldozers have been unable to access the side of the mountain, and here radioactive debris lies in the open.
Back, I showed you how low this sound was, but if we're getting into the area where the waste is, or the uranium ore, you can hear the higher pitch to the sound. So we're actually looking at something that's probably at least 10 times background here.
And is it dangerous even to be here? Or?
If we can leave now, we'll be okay. It wouldn't hurt us.
But we don't want to sleep here tonight.
No, you don't want to stay here. And you don't want to put that in your pocket.
That's the stuff that the miners were digging all day
Yes.
along with their hands.
Yeah. This is only one of the waste piles. If you look at the canyons across, there's other mines there but in terms of it eroding down into the canyon and ultimately down into the cove community, that could be a problem. How much is actually leaching or eroding down there, we don't know.
Some of the mines still have owners. This mine is owned by the United Nuclear Corporation, a recently acquired subsidiary of General Electric. Today, the company is no longer in business. It has, however, left behind thousands of tons of radioactive waste a couple of hundred meters from several Navajo homes. Chris Seshui is a scientist from a private research foundation which has financed a study of the effects of the mine's pollution on the nearby village. In some places, radiation levels here are up to 40 times normal.
Our investigation went up this arroyo right to the base of that mine dump. We can't go on the mine site, but we found significant levels of gamma radiation at the surface. We found high levels of uranium in the soils in this area.
The result of the study prompted the Environmental Protection Agency to undertake a partial cleanup of the village. A layer of radioactive soil is removed and the underlying ground is covered with clean dirt. For the moment, this is done only in the immediate vicinity of the homes, 10 meters or so, and on access roads. Andy Bain, director of the project, indicates that a second phase will have to address the root cause of contamination, the mine tailings.
And do you have the funding to do this part too?
We need to work, we need to negotiate a cleanup remedy with the company, United Nuclear. We have some EPA funding to conduct a cleanup. We are limited how much we can spend.
So, a real cleanup depends on ongoing negotiations between the EPA and United Nuclear, which has always been reluctant to assume costs. Company management, which still has an office on the reservation, declined to speak to us. Another problem for Mr. Bain is that Church Rock is just one of many contaminated sites.
We've identified more than 500 abandoned uranium mine sites, and we are in the process of evaluating the impacts of those mine sites in a very general sense so that we can come up with a prioritization.
Mr. Nez is well acquainted with the slow speed of federal bureaucracy. He is one of the Church Rock residents whose property, after years of waiting, is now undergoing reclamation.
We knew all along that we had that uranium problem. We've been waiting for this time, this kind of cleanup for about 25 years.
Temporarily housed in a motel during the work, he returns daily to feed his animals and check on the EPA's progress. Mr. Nez is relieved to finally see some action from the federal agency, but can't understand why only such a small portion is being done.
So nine infrastructure, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. What about 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. We've got 18 in this valley.
Well, you know, we chose the homes that were in the immediate vicinity.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You know, we don't do it all at once, Teddy. I mean, that's not how it works. We are looking at the areas that we're seeing the most direct impact.
Just a little Band-Aid. So what they should have done is clean out the whole area instead of just little bitty pieces.
Like many of his neighbors, Mr. Nez has cancer, and he attributes it to the mine. But no matter what happens, for him leaving Church Rock is out of the question.
This is where my roots is. This is where Mother Earth is. This is where my grandmother used to live. I want to stay here. If cancer is going to take me, it's going to take me. So before that happens, I'd like to say something on behalf of my children.
But there's more, and Teddy Nez draws us a picture. Just a few hundred yards from the ground being decontaminated today, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, incredibly, has authorized a new mining operation. A company called HRI proposes to extract uranium using a new method it claims is completely safe. Chris Shuey sees the same basic lack of concern for the local population.
This is an expendable population. It's been that way for as long as we've been around conquering the indigenous people of the North American continent, and it's been that way during the nuclear age. So you have these questions about public health and safety, the long-term impacts of the past mining. Now you've got new mining coming in to add to the burden on a population that has little political and economic power.
Confronted with this prospect, the Navajo Nation recently passed a law forbidding any new form of uranium mining on the reservation. But it is still possible that the federal government could overrule it.
We hope not. That's the other shoe that has to drop. We have to find out what's going to happen. If they choose to allow uranium mining on Navajo, the Navajo Nation will go to court to protect its sovereignty and protect its land.
The looming legal battle could determine whether the government will choose to once again reopen historical wounds which on this land have not yet healed.